You realize that you and Christina are never going to be together.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
That's true. That's true.
What has this girl got? I don't get it.
She's got some magic.
What has she got that you're all sprung on, man? What is it? I mean, that you're willing to
sacrifice your child.
Dude, I don't get it, man. That's odd. I've never heard such an answer to a question.
There's only one person I've ever known that sacrificed his child, and you're not God. You're not God.
This is Braylon Ellis near the end of a 2.5-hour interrogation in a room at the sheriff's office in Gwinnett County, Georgia on September 11th, 2013. The 25-year-old was arrested the day before at his mom's house in Stone Mountain, a city just outside of Atlanta, on suspicion of capital murder in the death of a man in Fort Worth, Texas. Braylon told police they had the wrong guy, and outside of trying to explain where he was on the night of the incident, mostly listened to Detective Thomas O'Brien pleading with him to tell them why he was actually at the victim's house a week earlier. Braylon had an air of confidence about him throughout the interview. He stretched, rolled his head, and picked at wounds like he was passing time in after-school detention.
Can I get some alcohol, please?
This is despite Detective O'Brien telling him they could place him at the crime scene, that they had surveillance videos tracking his movements, and that certain items belonging to the victim were found at his mom's home when he was arrested. And the detective was not bluffing. Short of video documenting the actual murder, Fort Worth homicide probably couldn't have asked for more evidence linking him to the crime. The purpose of this interview, the detective claimed, was to understand why a man who was said to come from a good family and was so close to starting a new life in Georgia was now at risk of losing it all. The answer to that question will take us back to the beginning of the year, when Braylon had a life-altering chance encounter on a Greyhound bus in the Chameleon.
You ever heard of a guy named Tommy Jackson, or Tommy Brown? Tommy Lee Brown? Okay. You don't know who he is?
No.
Never met him before? Never heard of him?
I don't know nothing about this dude.
Okay.
Tommy Brown was a man of habit. Every morning at just before 7 a.m., the 51-year-old would smoke a cigarette and drink coffee out on his porch on Radican Road in Fort Worth. His neighbor Willie testified to that because he observed it himself when he was out watering his yard. But on Friday morning, September 6, 2013, Tommy did not emerge. "I didn't see his truck in the driveway," Willie said in court. "I thought he probably got up and went to work early." Born in Mississippi, Tommy was an organic gardener who graduated from Eastern Hills High School in Fort Worth. For several years, the man who neighbors endearingly called Rat worked for Bright Janitorial, which contracted cleaners for businesses. Dependable and always willing to help if needed was how Tommy's supervisor Deborah Grimes described the man. He worked on buildings between 6 p.m. and midnight, only going in after closing. One particular contract was of interest to detectives, which was his last one, a cleaning job at Advanced Animal Care Clinic. Surveillance cameras captured some of his final moments alive, cleaning the clinic alongside his girlfriend after 10 p.m. on September 5th. 2 days later, Tommy's sister Andrea, or Rita, who hadn't seen him since the day of his last job, sent him a "call me ASAP" text, but got no response. So she went to his house. Tommy was in his bathroom, laying face down, shoeless, and his hands tied behind his back with his own shoelace. He had 2 plastic bags over his head, the inside one secured by a piece of white tape that went over his nose and mouth 11 times, and the outside one loosely secured around his neck by his other shoelace, which did not leave a ligature mark. He had a broken bone in his neck and several injuries to his face that suggested he had been beaten badly. He had bruises, swelling of the eyes, lacerations and abrasions all over, as well as 9 broken ribs, which would have required a significant amount of force to accomplish, the medical examiner noted. Bits of ceramic were found near his body. A missing toilet tank lid in the bathroom where he lay suggested he was hit with it. The medical examiner who did the autopsy on September 8th said he died of asphyxia and blunt force injuries, but could not determine which did him in. He could have died of asphyxiation by the plastic bags, the tape around his face, choking by hands, any of the blunt striking of the head, or a combination of all of that. Of note at the scene was a bottle of bleach that investigators believed was used to clean up the mess, including the back of Tommy's shirt, which had white discoloration on it, and in the kitchen were bloody shoe prints and a coin-shaped blot of blood that was significant to Detective O'Brien, because typically in scenes with blunt force, a suspect may hurt themselves and bleed in an area away from the victim, especially one that is typically used to clean up. But it was also what wasn't at the scene that gave investigators an idea for a motive. First, there was a missing television that was supposed to be on the same cabinet with that bleach bottle. But of more investigative value, it would turn out, was that Tommy's truck, wallet, and phone were missing.
You ever been to Fort Worth?
No.
Never.
Like when I was little.
Okay, but you haven't been there recently.
No.
Well, that's important, isn't it? Because I'm from Fort Worth, meaning my badge is. So that probably means what I'm talking about is from Fort Worth. If you ain't never been there, it's damn near impossible for you to have done this, isn't it? Don't you agree? I ain't the brightest man, but that's how I come up with it. If you've never been to Fort Worth, there's no way you could have done this. That's a fact. Flat out. But let's go.
It's the morning after the discovery, Sunday the 8th of September, and Detective O'Brien is standing with a colleague in front of a tan Toyota Tacoma at Fort Worth PD's Auto Pound. One of the first things Detective O'Brien had initially observed at the crime scene was that Tommy's car wasn't there. The pickup's bed had a backpack vacuum that matched the one carried by Tommy the night he worked the animal clinic. The license plate came back to Tommy's home, and the keys were still in the ignition when it was towed 2 days earlier from a sun-kissed food store about 1.4 miles from the crime scene to a private wrecker. Investigators learned from the person who called the towing company that the car had been spotted as early as midnight Thursday, the 5th of September, going into Friday morning when, at 10:40 a.m., it was taken away. Detective O'Brien was unsuccessful in retrieving any surveillance video from the sun-kissed store to see who was driving it. But the detective also knew from existing police reports that Tommy had been robbed before. And because he could not find the victim's wallet or bank cards, he felt the suspect could have used Tommy's plastic along the way, which he hoped would lead to a trail of purchases that could yield some video. So he went back to the home and found that Tommy used a financial institution called First National Bank, the nearest location being inside a Walmart down the street from the scene. There, he learned that Tommy's debit card had been used on the 6th and the 7th, and then got a search warrant for more transaction records, which revealed that the card had been used for days after his death. Detective O'Brien learned that this bank card had a hybrid debit and credit function. To use cash, you needed a PIN number. To use credit, you could simply sign a receipt. Mapping its use, you can see that the card was traveling east toward Georgia.
Let me ask you this. Do you think I'm bullshitting you?
Bullshitting me about what?
The fuck we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes.
Man, I told you from the jump, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so you ever heard of Tommy Lee Brown?
No.
You ever seen Tommy Lee Brown?
No.
Okay. You ever been to Tommy Lee Brown's house?
No.
You ever been in Tommy Lee Brown's car?
No.
You ever messed with Tommy Lee Brown's stuff?
No.
You ever touched Tommy Lee Brown's personal items?
No.
You ever used Tommy Lee Brown's phone?
No.
You ever used Tommy Lee Brown's credit card?
No.
Man. You really want to go that route? It's a pain in the ass to pull that much video from here to Mississippi, from Fort Worth to Mississippi, when that shit ran out. But I did it. Y'all think we're just dum-dums or what? You think I had U.S. Marshals kick in that fucking door because we don't have a slightest clue who did it?
Y'all already know.
Braylon, I'm sitting here willing to listen to you, but I don't want to play games with you.
I told you I don't know nothing about what you're talking about.
So you don't know?
No.
Okay. You understand that just ain't gonna fly, right?
You say what you want to say. Y'all can do what you want to do.
Okay.
On Tuesday, the 10th of September, a day after working on the surveillance tapes, Detective O'Brien made contact with the owners of Tommy's employer, Bright Janitorial Service, which led him to Tommy's supervisor, Deborah Grimes. Deborah said she first noticed something off about Tommy when he didn't call that Saturday, the 7th, to tell her he wasn't going to be at a scheduled job. She said she initially tried calling but couldn't reach him, so she asked him via text to call her. "I'm driving to El Paso," had an emergency she received in reply that day. "Your buildings are covered for the weekend. Call me as soon as you get back," she answered. "Thank you so much," was the response. "Is the backpack at the kennel?" she asked him, referring to his vacuum, but got no response. 2 days later, on September 9th, she gets a text back. "Deborah, I won't be back no time soon. I don't know if you remember, I told you I was going to be a father. Well, my girl is in the hospital and I'm low on cash. Is there any way I can borrow some cash? I lost my wallet. I'm in the middle of the road. If you can send the money to my cousin." His name is Braylon Ellis. It's 3:30 a.m. on Friday, the day after Tommy's death and before his discovery, and Braylon Dominique Ellis is walking to the counter of the emergency department at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. He's wearing a do-rag, glasses, an oversized white t-shirt, and his right hand is wrapped in some type of white bandaging. When he unfurls that wrap to the attending physician, he'll reveal a gash on his thumb and palm. It's a good thing he came in. He explained that he was attacked by a stray pit bull while on a street in North Dallas after dropping off his son at his cousin's house.
Why don't you tell me how you got hurt?
I was in North Dallas, walking off rolling and Skillman, and a stray pit bull attacked me.
When was that?
I don't know the night. I just got here 2 days ago. It's probably what.
Well, let's work that. Let's work it back then.
The doctor stitches him up and tells him he'll need to come back to get a series of rabies shots. But in the meantime, he's prescribed medication and leaves at 6:35 a.m. 4 days later, on the afternoon of September 10th, Detective O'Brien receives information from the digital forensic lab that a Braylon Ellis had been given a prescription. When that name first emerged from the text message to Tommy's supervisor, Detective O'Brien searched for a photo of the man and then looked through the surveillance videos, including from the CVS pharmacy where Braylon picked up his medications, and from the Walmart earlier on the day of the incident, which shows him and his son exiting the store that contained Tommy's bank, meaning he was around the victim's home that day. It was a visual match. A black male about 6 feet 2 inches tall, which Tommy's neighbor Willie, who later failed to pull Braylon from a police lineup, confirmed was a general description of the stranger he saw pull the victim into his own home on the suspected night of the incident, which was September 5th. 25-year-old Braylon Ellis was the oldest of 4 children whose parents divorced when he was around 8 years old. He was born and grew up in Dallas and moved with his mom to Georgia where he attended elementary school. He was an average kid trying to get settled into a new environment, new school, making friends with everybody, his mom said, adding he excelled in math and played basketball in school. It was difficult for him, but eventually he did overcome. He then moved back to Texas when he was in the 11th grade after he was kicked out of school for accidentally firing a friend's handgun in the school bathroom. He ended up living with his dad and attended an alternative school there. He transferred back to regular high school, Plano Senior High, and played Division 5A basketball, but dropped out in his senior year. He had worked various jobs since, at a Kids Foot Locker, as an office assistant in a federal building in Dallas, and most recently as a forklift operator and dock loader at a UPS in Capel for roughly 7 months. By early 2013, Braylon wanted to be more involved in his child's life. The 3-year-old's mother, who was now Braylon's ex-girlfriend, was living in California, so he had to travel via Greyhound bus to pick up and drop off the child. If that wasn't hard enough, when he did bring the child back to Texas, he did not have a stable home despite the long hours he had worked at the UPS store. Instead, he had been living out of hotels. 3 months before the incident, Braylon, who was now unemployed and subsisting off a $4,700 tax return, had a phone conversation with his mother about him and his son possibly living with her in Georgia to help with daycare as he got back on his feet. But when the time came for him to visit, he did not show up. He was preoccupied. As Tommy's sister Andrea was being driven to the police station on the day of the discovery, she got a ping on her phone. It was a reply to her earlier "call me ASAP" text. "I'm driving to El Paso, what do you want?" was the response from Tommy's phone. The assumption was that Braylon was in possession of that phone, so Detective O'Brien asked Andrea to text back, "Okay, call me when you get back. Have a safe trip." The purpose was to give the suspect a reason to keep the phone on long enough for investigators to track it. The detective had hoped that, because there was little media coverage of the incident at that point, Braylon may have been unaware that Tommy's body had already been discovered. The plan worked. On September 10th, Fort Worth PD's fugitive unit and the U.S. Marshal Service were able to get a ping off a tower near her home at Shadowpath Lane in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Detective O'Brien flew out that evening to Atlanta and then headed to the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office. By then, they already had an arrest warrant in hand. At 2 a.m. on the 11th, hours before Braylon's interrogation, the lead detective went to the home at Shadowpath Lane, which was surrounded by police. The points of interest were a Dodge Intrepid and the room Braylon was staying in, both of which contained Tommy's belongings.
You don't know anything.
Nothing.
You don't know anything. You don't know how Tommy's stuff ended up at your house in Georgia.
No.
Tommy's stuff ended up in your house in Georgia. How is that possible?
It wasn't by me.
Okay. So, you didn't do anything, you weren't there. You're an intelligent man. If you weren't there and you didn't do anything, how did things taken from Tommy after he was murdered end up in your house in Georgia?
I don't know. You asked me. It wasn't my position. It's not me. I don't know nothing.
Inside the car was a wallet with Tommy's debit card in it, and in the room was a piece of paper that appeared to have Tommy's account information and driver's license number on it, as well as his actual driver's license and his phone, which was hidden behind some paperwork on a shelf. That phone will be taken in for a data extraction, but not before being tested for fingerprints, a swab of which came back negative to Braylon. The prints were those of another person in the room with him, a woman named Eunice Christina Rodriguez.
Who is the female you were with?
It's my wife.
What's her name?
Her name is Christina
Okay. Christina what?
Rodriguez.
How long have you been married?
Well, we technically not married yet.
Okay. Are you like common law or what?
No, we're not married. Not even yet. We actually getting our life together.
Okay. Y'all have any kids together or anything like that?
Not yet.
Okay. How long you known each other?
Where we met, on the ground was, I was going to pick up my son from California from his mom.
Did y'all just hit it off right off the bat or what?
I mean, no, I talked to her. That's how was she doing.
Okay.
That was it.
I mean, is this a deal where you guys are just sitting on the bus together, you look over and strike up a conversation, or have this thing happen?
No, I was in my own zone. I was in my own seat and I saw her.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to get her number, so I got her number.
Okay. So you get her number, you go to California, get your kid, you come back and bring your kid to your parents, right?
That's right.
Okay.
When Braylon returned with his son from California, he called and told Christina about his plans, that he was going to put in his 2 weeks' notice to leave his job, get a recommendation letter and his tax return money, and then travel to El Paso to be with her.
How do you end up getting hooked up with Christina again? You got her number.
Well,
what's the next thing that happened?
Things started going wrong with work.
Okay.
They started messing around with my pay, my work hours. Things just started getting real bad. So I had already got my letter of recommendation to get a transfer anyway, because before I even met her, I was planning on moving to Georgia. So I was just like, well, I could start a new life. I got a beautiful woman.
Braylon was infatuated. By March 2013, he was lodging at her parents' house in El Paso with only his clothes, the recommendation letter, the tax return money, but no car or job except for a plan to eventually get one. He said Christina was collecting $700 a month from somewhere and was under the impression she was employed, but said he didn't actually see her physically go anywhere for work. The couple spent about 2 weeks at her parents' place and then bounced around raggedy motels and hotels until August, when he said they decided to go to Georgia to live with his mom, taking Christina's rented blue Dodge Intrepid. The date of the trip was September 5th, 2013, the starting point of a new life now that Christina told him she was pregnant with his child. But first, she needed to handle some business with a man named Tommy Brown. During the early weeks of her relationship with Braylon, Christina opened up about her past with the custodian, who was unknown to her new boyfriend.
You ever been at Tommy Brown's house?
No.
You know who Tommy Brown is? You ever heard his name?
I've heard his name before. But
Well, fucking hey, what did you hear about?
To my knowledge, that's what, her baby daddy or something.
Okay. Is she pregnant?
Hey, to my knowledge, I don't think she is. She might be. I don't know.
Hey, man, when we sat down here, you said that to your wife, and then you backed out a little bit, and you said, no, but you're gonna marry her.
Yeah.
You don't know if she's pregnant or not?
I don't think she's pregnant yet.
Yet? So you plan on dropping that?
No.
All right.
Christina and Tommy had been in a rocky relationship that lasted over 10 years and that included police involvement, such as an incident on February 10th, 2013, in which Christina accused Tommy of assaulting her. All of this was new to Braylon.
So, tell me what she's told you about Tommy.
To my knowledge, she just beat him.
She beat him?
Well, he beat on her.
He would beat on her?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me something else.
That's all I really know. Like, he was a molester or something.
Okay.
And that's pretty much that's all I know.
That's important shit, man. That's important shit with what we're talking about. Now, when, as far as you know, when did she last see Tommy?
If I had to take a guess, I think he called her or something and sent him a Greyhound ticket.
So, it was the week he left. She gets a Greyhound bus ticket to go to where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you say about that? What's that all about?
She can take care of his business.
Okay, what does that mean?
I mean, whatever business y'all got together, y'all do it. Just
Well, I mean, listen, man, this is your girl. She's gonna jump on a bus, go see some other dude. You're gonna ask some questions. What's that about?
well, I don't ask questions. If she tell me, okay, then we go about our business.
Is there a plan to meet up somewhere? What's the deal?
Well, she just said she was gonna give me a call when she was ready.
Okay.
Braylon said while Christina was visiting Tommy that night, and while he was driving from El Paso to his cousin's house in North Dallas, he booked a room at the Knights Inn in Fort Worth. It's the first time he admits to being in Tommy's city that day. He says after he drops off his son, he gets food from a nearby McDonald's, goes to the now closed Valley View Center Mall, and then to a park, where he's attacked by a pit bull.
And you know when you get this feeling like someone walks up behind you?
Uh-huh.
It was like that. And a big ass dog jumped out and bit the shit out of me. So I just started fighting it off.
Okay.
Braylon says he then picks up his son from his cousin's house, goes to the hospital to get checked out for the bite, and then gets a call from Christina to come pick her up.
Man, this is working out, buddy. This is all coming together for you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, think of the luck. You know, you're just driving. You don't know shit. You just Google some shit on the phone. You get you a hotel, but you don't know where the fuck it's at. It turns out it's in Fort Worth. But you ain't going to Fort Worth. You're going to Dallas, right? You're going to North Dallas. You drop your kid off with Dino. You run out. You do your shit. Dog bites you. You beat the shit out of the dog. You go pick up your son. You go to the hospital. In North Dallas, and Knights Inn at Fort Worth, that ain't close. That ain't even real close at all. In fact, you really have to go out of your way to get to that Knights Inn when it comes to North Dallas. Because there's about, a couple thousand in between there, easily. And so pick the luck. You don't know where the fuck Christine's going. You don't know when she's going to call you. You don't know where she's going to be. And just so happens you pick a place a couple miles from where you're going to pick her up. Buddy, you are one lucky son of a bitch. You're just burying yourself even deeper, dude. I don't give a shit. I told you the deal. I wasn't playing games with you. Right now, she's got you out as the big, bad motherfucker who did the killing, and she's gonna say it was all on you. That was your idea. I can tell you more about this woman. I can explain things to you of why you need to get as far away from her as possible. I understand you met her and you guys hit it off and stuff like that. I'm telling you, dude, she's single-handedly fucking your life up. She's wanted him dead for a while. You know that? I don't know if you know that. I don't know if she explained that to you. But you are not the first person who this has kind of happened with. When it comes to Tommy. Listen, I'm telling you that because there's certain things I can't tell you for a reason. But I'm trying to hint to you, and I'm trying to let you know there's more about this woman that you just don't know, and you're going to get taken down by her.
Christina Rodriguez is getting homesick. It's the early 1990s, and the teenager is in Juarez, Mexico, lodging with her biological mother, who had one day taken her home from a school just north of the border. Christina had yearned to find her birth mom for a while, but after about a month away from Texas, she wanted to come back home to the embrace of her father and stepmother Marta, who provided this narrative. Marta was initially reluctant to raise her husband's children, but after the death of his mother, she said she gladly nurtured Christina, who was one of 5 kids in the mixed household. Marta said Christina, whose sister endearingly called Roach, was always lively, happy, and got along with her siblings. She went to and got good grades at Anthony Elementary School in Anthony, New Mexico, about 22 miles north of El Paso, but dropped out of school entirely just before her 18th birthday. After the adventure in Juarez, which caused a conflict within the family, Marta said Christina expressed a desire to strike out on her own. That life apparently involved learnings from the curriculum of Hard Knocks, lessons from which included having children by men who, her family claimed, treated her horribly. Cases in point, a man named Anthony who, Christina's family members said, had a criminal record, abused her, and had at least one child by her before they split, and before getting with the allegedly verbally abusive Braylon Ellis, whose mere look Marta claimed put fear in her soul and spirit, Christina hooked up with a man named Tommy Brown, who she met in the early 2000s and had the police called on him. Braylon said on the stand that before he was apprehended, he really did not know Christina all that well, and when he met her, did not know she was already seeing Tommy. Meanwhile, the victim, who was seeing another woman at the time, referred to Christina as his girlfriend to some, and simply as the woman he was helping out to his sister. Braylon took the stand in his defense and claimed that on the night of September 5th, 2013, Christina told him that she wanted to settle a matter with Tommy related to a child she shared with him. He drops her off near Tommy's home and waits for her to call him. When Christina eventually calls back, Braylon will learn that Tommy allegedly hit her. That's Braylon's baby mama Tommy was messing with as far as he was aware. An unarmed Braylon arrives in Tommy's neighborhood, parks around the corner, and is escorted by Christina inside the house while Tommy's away. Christina allegedly tells him to go into one of the bedrooms at the back. He was to stay there until Tommy came back with her. But when they did come through the front door, Braylon, who said he didn't know if this guy had a gun or not, said he panicked and froze. Tommy is completely unaware that he has a stranger in his home, and before Braylon can make himself known, he leaves with Christina to the animal clinic for a job after 10 p.m. While they're at the clinic, Braylon is hiding out in the bedroom, waiting for a second chance. Just before Christina and Tommy come through the front door a second time, Braylon claims she texts him. "What are you gonna do with him?" "I'm gonna kick his ass," he said he replied. As they approached the front door, Braylon claimed he panicked and ran into the bathroom and picked up the toilet tank lid that was already on the counter. He said he waited for Tommy to walk past the bathroom and then hit him with the swing of the lid once, shattering it and cutting his hand. He claimed the force of the impact did not knock him out. Actually, he said, Tommy was fine enough to get into a scuffle with the attacker, who had about 9 inches of height and 60 pounds on the man, double his age. Braylon was able to wrestle the man to the ground and mount him, punch him 8 to 10 times in the head, and, when he still wasn't knocked out, hit him 3 times in the face with a kitchen pot Christina handed to him. All of this violence, Braylon claimed, was simply an attempt to put him out, not kill him. Because he was still alive and was able to crawl halfway to the bathroom, Christina allegedly told Braylon to use one of the victim's shoelaces to tie his hands behind his back because she didn't want him to get away. Braylon's DNA was all over the victim, on his belt, the shoelaces, and his jeans, and despite the level of detail provided, Braylon's story did not explain how Tommy suffered 9 broken ribs. Braylon then goes to the tub to rinse off and is given some paper towels to wrap his injured hand. He goes to the kitchen to get some cleaning supplies, specifically the bleach bottle. It was obvious to investigators that there was some cleaning done, as evidenced by the lack of blood between the body and the bloody shoe prints in the kitchen. Braylon conveyed that he had nothing to do with the aftermath, saying he told Christina that they had to leave after giving her the bleach. But he claimed Christina did not want to go just yet, implying there was some unfinished business. She told him to take Tommy's TV and load it into the victim's truck, which he did, and told him that she'd take Tommy's truck and meet him at a nearby location to pick her up, which would turn out to be the Sunkist convenience store. At the store, Braylon and Christina transfer 2 bags and Tommy's TV from the Tacoma into the Intrepid, leave the truck and its keys behind, and continue their trip. They'll make stops at a 7-Eleven at just after 1:40 a.m., the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital at 3:30 a.m., a McDonald's drive-thru at 7:42 a.m., and a CVS a couple minutes later, where Christina tries to withdraw money from an ATM, but fails twice because she doesn't know Tommy's PIN number, only later paying for something via credit by forging Tommy's initials on the receipt. The couple then picks up Braylon's son and are later seen at just before 5 p.m. at a Dollar General, with the clothes that will be found at the home in Georgia in the later search. They then come back to the same CVS to pick up Braylon's prescription meds and head to a Chevron gas station in Wascom, where Braylon uses Tommy's card and forges his victim's initials on the receipt. All of this video was pulled from stores where they used Tommy's bank card. To supplement, they pawned his TV. It took Detective O'Brien only until the day after Tommy was discovered to get an arrest warrant for Christina Rodriguez, but by then, she and her boyfriend had already skipped town. Christina's warrant was based on several underlying discoveries. Neighbor Wooley's description of a Hispanic woman walking Tommy into the home that night was distinct from Tommy's other girlfriend, the mention of Christina's hometown of El Paso in those texts from Tommy's phone, and the fact that Christina, who was known to be romantically involved with Tommy, was no stranger to police.
Okay, she gets what she wants. And if she just told you to go over there and whoop his ass, I think that's pretty damn important. Because I could see how at the scene she could escalate it. She could make it worse. She could make it get to where she wanted it. I get that. But I can't sit here and even put it in my file. Because it's not me coming up with my theory on why it happened. That ain't evidence. That ain't evidence. Evidence would be your side of the story. Her side of the story.
The first time Braylon's mother Macy heard of Christina was when her son called and told her in September that he was bringing the 37-year-old with him. I kind of questioned the relationship, what type of person she was, Macy said in court about the woman 12 years his senior. When he told me the age difference, I was like, I don't condone that because of the age difference. I didn't approve of it. But you're grown and you need to understand that I'll treat her as if anyone else when she comes. But when she comes, know that I will be having a one-on-one conversation with her just to get a feel of her personality and see where her head is. I had no knowledge of her history whatsoever. Christina, Braylon, and his son arrived at the home on Shadowpath Lane in Georgia on Sunday, September 8th, the day after the discovery, and 2 days before their arrest. My first impression was that she was somewhat evasive, aloof, Macy said of Christina. I was trying to make eye contact with her. She never would look at me in my eyes. Anytime I would try to have a conversation with her, she would elude it by doing something else like either fumbling with my grandson or just real evasive. She wouldn't try to have a conversation. But at one point I forced her to have a conversation with me. She felt somewhat uncomfortable, and that was okay, because I wanted her to be uncomfortable and let her know that you got my son here. This is my firstborn. So exactly what are your intentions for him other than sex, which was a given? What are your intentions for him? He's not working full-time. He has not received his high school diploma. So what is it? Macy said she did not recognize the son she raised when he arrived that Sunday. There were times that I would try to talk to Braylon just one-on-one, and it was like he would look at her as if to get approval. Is it okay to talk to my mom? I'm like, what is this? I mean, you have that strong a grip on him that he's got to look at you to get permission to talk to me, his mother who gave birth to him.
How much do you love Christina?
I love her enough to marry her.
While Braylon was very much in the honeymoon phase of the Christina experience, Tommy was deep in the disillusionment part. 2 months before his death, on July 8th, Tommy left his home as he normally did for work. When he returned less than an hour later, at 11:35 p.m., he noticed that some of his stuff was missing. He must have thought, not again. 3 days earlier, Tommy left Christina to herself in a room at his home while he went to shower. When he returned to the room, she was gone, and so was his wallet, driver's license, and bank card. When Tommy called her about this, he said he heard another person laugh at him. He then said Christina got on the phone and threatened to send that same person to kick his ass and even kill him. It is not clear who this second person was. At that time, he must have also thought, not again, because over a year earlier, at just after midnight on March 16th, 2012, Tommy got a call from his bank notifying him that his card had been used fraudulently. The culprit was Christina. Despite all of this, Tommy did not break it off with her. It was actually a common dynamic wherein she would rob him, things would get physical, and they would somehow reconcile.
That's magic.
That cycle rolled into the end of August 2013, when Tommy bought her that Greyhound bus ticket to visit him. It was on this visit that she would, for the last time, take advantage of him. Or anyone else, for that matter. It wasn't long after Ariela Menendez and Grace Betancourt placed an advertisement in the El Paso Times newspaper for a caretaker when they got a call from a Karina Ramirez interested in the position. It was January 2002, and the sisters were desperate to find a person to care for their 82-year-old father, a diabetic who had a prosthetic leg and needed assistance getting around the house. While the family had caretakers, none were available for the night shift. Karina was so eager for the position that she phoned the sisters for 2 weeks afterward. She would say that she was the head nurse of the Gadsden Independent School District and provided names of family and friends for references. The last of her incessant calls came on Friday, January 11, 2002. They asked the 25-year-old to come in for an interview and were delighted to learn that she was ready to start immediately. Later, while at a restaurant, Ariela said she kept getting calls from her dad's phone, but initially ignored them because she wanted her dad to get used to the caretaker. It turned out that it was Karina calling, who asked where her dad put his money because she said he wanted her to buy him some food. Ariela told her that she left meat for her to cook and declined to tell her where the money was. Sometime later, Grace picks up the phone to her father. "Come quickly," he whispered in Spanish. She asked what happened, but heard nothing else. When the family got to the home on Arizona Avenue at around 6:30 p.m., the first thing they noticed was Karina's car was gone and the front door was wide open. When they went into her father's room, he was sitting there quietly, without his glasses or hearing aids, and his prosthetic leg looked like it had been thrown on the other side of the bed. The room was a mess. The closet and drawers were open, his clothes were everywhere, and his checkbook was on his bed. Asked what happened, he said Karina hit him. "What do you mean she hit you?" she probed, to which he raised his shaking hands, unbuttoned his shirt to reveal a blood-covered arm, the skin peeling off. He was taken to the hospital and died 2 weeks later of a stroke. Karina's intentions were on full display. She pled guilty to aggravated robbery and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Karina Ramirez was not her real name. It was an alias for Christina Lujan, who was also known as Eunice Christina Rodriguez. Tommy Brown knew this, or at least he knew she was serving time in prison. He became pen pals with Christina early in her stay at the penitentiary and continued that relationship after she was released in 2012. Braylon, on the other hand, said he had no idea who he was dealing with, didn't know she was 37 years old, didn't know she was a felon, didn't know she had a boyfriend she regularly robbed like it was a sport, and did not know that she went by different aliases. What Braylon did know was that by the night of September 5th, they were running low on money, were living in and out of hotels, and that Christina allegedly had a master plan to resolve their issues by robbing Tommy, and then start life anew in Georgia. He claimed he had no idea she was using Tommy's phone to message his sister and supervisor, only realized when they were at the stores that she was using Tommy's debit card, and more importantly, that he did not know what Christina was doing in the home when he claimed he left her behind after beating Tommy. Using the medical examiner's inability to pinpoint an exact cause of death, Braylon conveyed in court that, despite his DNA being all over Tommy, his shoelaces, and the ceramic pieces, it was Christina, whose DNA was only confirmed to be on Tommy's belt, who put the 2 plastic bags over his head and the tape around his face while he was gone. Hairs found on the plastic bags were not asked to be tested. Despite claiming he was scared, Braylon did not run out of the house when he had the opportunity, could not explain Tommy's broken ribs, claimed the 51-year-old fought back after being whacked in the head with a toilet tank lid, which seemed implausible to prosecutors, and claimed to only want to beat him up, but didn't call emergency services and tied his hands behind his back to ensure he never got the chance to. Investigators pointed to robbery as the motive for the crime, but it was far less clear why Braylon would allegedly go all the way, considering he didn't have a connection to the victim. They did, however, have a theory.
I think you love Christina so much. I think you love her so much that you can't stand the thought of her ever having been with anybody else. I was really on board with him when we first walked in this room and when we came here. But I think really what happened is that you love her so much, and she's always running back to Tommy. And Tommy waited for her while she was in prison for 10 years. And ever since she's been out of prison, she's been running back and forth to Tommy. Tommy sent her a ticket to come from El Paso back here. There was truth in that. We know that. We have that. And Tommy was sending her money, which may have worked out great for both of y'all. But for whatever messed up, crazy reason, Tommy and Christina were going to be forever, because she was never going to let that go. But I truly believe that you can't say anything else, because you are that cold-blooded killer that could not stand the thought of Christina constantly running back to Tommy because you love her that much.
Braylon claimed in court that Christina would tell him at one time that she was pregnant, then another time that she wasn't, and then another time that she was. He said he saw her stomach getting bigger, so he didn't question it. The pregnancy story, like the unfounded allegation she made against Tommy that got Braylon all worked up, was just another lie in her life of deception. She was, in fact, not pregnant with Braylon's child. Braylon, at the end of the day, just picked the wrong woman on that bus trip. The prosecution argued that Braylon intended to kill Tommy because of the number of times he hit him over the head, with the toilet tank lid, with his fists, and with the kitchen pot. Braylon pleaded for aggravated assault, but got felony murder instead. Still, a lesser charge compared to capital murder on his indictment. That means the jury did not believe he intended to kill Tommy and did not anticipate Christina doing so in pursuit of their primary objective of robbery. The defense had argued it was Christina who was the mastermind and posited that if Braylon wanted Tommy dead, he would have brought a weapon with him. Christina, who was the connective tissue of the three, also denied killing the man who really was, voluntarily and involuntarily, helping her out. She was also convicted of felony murder at her own trial. Braylon, who had no real criminal history, and Christina, who had an abundance of it and refused to speak with detectives, were both sentenced to life in prison with parole eligibility in 2043.
You realize that you and Christina are never going to be together.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Braylon and Christina were said by their families to have been raised in good households and blamed the other for corrupting their own. And when it came time to deal with the law, they turned on each other. It's a stark contrast to how Christina was once viewed by Braylon, whose answer to the following hypothetical is perhaps illustrative of Christina's ability to persuade and how far Braylon would go for her.
Your son and Christina are in a lake and they're swimming. She's here, he's there. And they're both drowning. You can only save one. Which one are you going to save? You can only save one.
Well, to be honest, I would save her.
Wow. Why?
Because I know my son, if he does die, he's going to go to heaven. Because he's
That
a
right
child of
there
God.
is why he's never going to give it up. That right there.
I don't think I've ever heard that answer.
And that's a great love. But I got to tell you, I've been married to my husband for 22 years. We got 3 kids and 5 grandkids. And I love my husband. I'd let that motherfucker drown before my child drowns. Guarantee you, without a doubt, love him, my soulmate. Ain't no way I'm letting my babies drown. There's no way. And I find it interesting that your son, you said, is 3?
That's right.
Okay. So you've loved him for 3 years. And you've only known her 6 or 7 months. And you love her more than your child, your flesh and blood.
I didn't say I loved her more. You asked me a question and I gave you an answer.
You would save her over your child.
Yeah, because I know the lifestyle I live. I know what my faith is. And my Lord Jesus Christ. Period.
Okay, so we'll go down that route. You're talking to a religious girl here. We can talk that all day. You're so sure about what will happen to him because of your faith in Jesus Christ.
Right.
That tells me that you're not sure what's going to happen to her because of your faith in Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Which tells me that you think she's not saved.
Well, I wouldn't say she's not saved. I look at it like this, okay. Lord, if it's time for my son to go, I'd rather him go as a baby than grown, because I can save my wife and possibly have more kids and don't even go through this situation again.
Wow.
Dude, I don't get it, man. That's odd. I've never heard such an answer to a question.
There's only one person I've ever known that sacrificed his child, and you're not God. You're not God. And I'm glad to know that your child is going to be raised by somebody that will love him.
My parents.
I know. Somebody who will love him. Because you're wrong. You don't love him enough. You don't love him enough.
Like I said, everyone has their own opinion.
Okay, man. Well, good luck with you. It's been real.
Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to the record staff for their assistance and to the YouTube members who help pay for the material you see in these videos. I hope you're well, you're doing acts of charity, and I'll see you next time. Good night.